Welcome to the Moms I Know with Sheila Walsh-Dunton and Maria Anderson-Farner. Two moms on a mission to reclaim childhood and take you from surviving to thriving on your parenting journey.
Music gives a soul to the universe, wings to the mind, flight to the imagination, and life to everything. It's a quote by Plato.
Hi, this is Sheila.
And this is Maria.
And we want to welcome you to the Moms I Know.
So obviously, this is an ancient topic, a beautiful topic of music. And we wanted to talk today about music and children. And this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. And I feel that music, like Plato said, just infuses everything with a different quality, a quality of joy, and can change the mood, can shift the relationships. And so I'm excited to talk about this today.
This is great. This is something that I've always strived for more of. And I know as my children's teacher, you did bring us into the classroom pretty regularly. And I really appreciated it. It's something both my husband and I are, we played guitar, but not regularly. And I think that's something that I always wish I would have done more of. Our children growing up, we exposed them to piano lessons. We exposed them to violin/fiddle lessons. And they were really fun, but nothing so much stuck. And I think what I said is if it became harder to enforce the practicing, then maybe it wasn't the time right now. And I know that's a question that a lot of people have. And so maybe you can answer, like, what would you say to somebody who's,
what is the right time? Yeah,
exactly. What's the right time? Also, as to when does it become more of the parents' project? Do you enforce it? I mean, we all read The Tiger Mom, right? who wanted her daughter to play at Carnegie Hall and everything. And she did. And it's like, is that what we want to do? I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I know so many questions. And, I've had all of these over the years. And I also came across a statistic that said 20% of children take music lessons. 70% of adults wish they had.
Oh, true.
And I thought that was interesting. And both of our children took music throughout the years. It was a part of homeschooling. It was a part of their growing up. It was a part of the Waldorf education. And again, like you, nothing really stuck, but they were exposed to it. They have the background in it. And I've worked with so many families where music is a huge part of their life. And I think that that's the key, is that when it is a part of the family's life. And it was so interesting in one of our interviews over the past couple of weeks, the woman was talking about her son and Celtic music camp. And so I think I've worked with a lot of families who have been very involved with that, and the whole family is playing music. Another good friend of mine, her family grew up, everyone singing. They sang together all the time in the home. They sang together on car trips. And so I think it's part of this culture of the family that really makes a difference. And then also, of course, you have these children that just are these musical prodigies that by the age of 3, they've picked something up and they're playing it. And so I think there are those children that it comes from this intrinsic genius. And I think for the rest of us, it's a discipline. And so it's one of those things, like anything that we can learn, we can enjoy, and we can bring it into our lives and have it be a part. But I love the fact that, really it infuses everything with a whole different atmosphere. And I also wanted to talk about it in the context of discipline and rhythm. So if we get off, I hope you'll bring me back to that. So
yeah.
But the right age. So, there are those children that just gravitate to it naturally. I'm watching 2 of my grandsons just, pick up ukuleles and start playing. However, their parents have facilitated that with the ukuleles in the home and exposing them to some concerts and things like that. Papa's playing the guitar, picking up the ukulele. So there is that as well. But if that isn't the family background, there are different schools of thought. There are people that talk about like the Suzuki method, where they start them just listening and picking up the music by ear. There's other people that say they should start learning to read music at an early age. There's other people that say 6 is the perfect age. Other people say wait till 10, wait till the child really wants to be doing this. So I guess the long answer to that is that there's no right answer. There's no perfect age. Every child is different. Every one of us is unique. And so I think we watch our children carefully. We expose them to lots and lots of music. And one of the things that I love is, that we all have a voice. And so our voice is our first instrument. And when a child is just an infant, and well, even when they're in utero, are we singing to them? Are we humming to them? Are they hearing our voice in music? Are we listening to beautiful, classical music? Are we listening to loud rhythmic music? What are we listening to? And that's going to also vary depending upon the cultures. And so it's a fun thing to think about. There are different schools of thought around that as well. What kind of music to expose children to? In the Waldorf curriculum, it's more simple, pentatonic scale, not as many notes, not as loud, that more classical music, more simple tunes. And so there's a wonderful book by Anna Rainville called Singing Games. And it's one of my favorite, coming from a more Waldorf background, about simple songs for children. And so, as very young children, we're singing to them, we're humming to them, we're playing clapping games, we're doing these rhythmic things. We're giving them instruments to play with, whether it's rhythmic or bells or different types of things, little pentatonic flutes or the lyre. There's just so many possibilities. And then as they're growing, we're exposing them to different types of music. And so some people say the strings are the most important ones to start children off with. Within the Waldorf school, they start with the pentatonic recorder, just very simple wooden flute that they can hold with a few notes. Some people say piano is the best. And so, I'm not a musician. I'm not a musical expert. And so there's going to be a lot of different theories. So I would invite, our listeners to research that. But I think a lot of it goes with what feels right to you. What do you gravitate to? I know that classical music, there's a lot of studies around classical music being very soothing to children, helping to enhance brain development. There's research that music really supports social and emotional growth, physical growth, creativity, quantitative growth. Can help with early literacy. But, the main thing is we want to foster a lifelong love of learning for children. And so it's just one of these things where I say start simply with singing and bring that into your house. The other thing is that when we look back throughout history, children, we think of children running, jumping, skipping, singing. They're singing little songs. They make up songs for themselves. Even an infant will kind of play with their voice. They'll play with babbling and different intonations. And so I think it is inherent in us as human beings to play with that vocalization. And so it's just really interesting to look at that.
Yeah, I really like what you said a lot just then. And, I think what I got from it is the opportunity. To keep on providing opportunities for our children to learn music, learn musicality. Because when I think back, from my own experience, thinking about my own childhood, and I grew up in the church. And so music was always a part of Mass. I went to a Catholic Mass. And when I became a second grader until sixth grade, I was in the church choir playing guitar. And so all of my music was really kind of church music. And it was interesting because that was what I was exposed to at that time. And as I grew out of that, I kind of went to more classic rock and went to more radio and stopped playing, and I feel like if I was exposed to different type of more acoustic guitar or more experience of seeing concert, I think I probably could have grown as a musician, which I didn't. And so I think that's really, really key. I also like what you said about definitely the Waldorf and the rhythm and finding, I think, the things we say as kids, whether it's jumping rope and we're learning and certain things like that. And there's a book that I got when my kids were little called 7 Times the Sun, which is just taking little events that happen. I know there was one, for example, when you got hurt, there was a song for healing, there was a song for seasonal songs and so many songs, so you can really bring those in. And what you're doing also, especially with the voice, is you're giving your children a voice. And I believe that's really important for a few reasons. Just that throat chakra being heard a lot of times children aren't, we're not heard. I think we're evolving as, kind of more conscious parenting, but being able to hear our children. And my daughter, is 10 years old. She's in the middle of doing voice lessons right now. And part of the reason why I'm doing that also is to strengthen her vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve connects the brain to the gut. And it's one of those ones that helps with digestion. And my daughter's had a few health issues here and there. And so I feel like by strengthening that, it's helping her, kind of get a stronger foundation, and so I really believe like there's so many benefits, like just health benefits, like just getting into parasympathetic and, really kind of getting in rhythm with yourself. When you do learn to sing, you do learn to play, music, because I think sometimes also people might be hindered because they don't have the means to afford lessons, or they don't have the means, to buy the instrument, but we all have a voice. If you can talk, you can sing. If you can walk, you can dance. And we're not really bringing in dancing, but that's a part of it, as well as moving your body rhythmically as well.
Right. That'll be another podcast. But
right.
So glad you brought up the strengthening the vagus nerve, because there's research that shows that, yes, singing does help improve our health. It also, oxygenates our lungs. It's also fun and engaging. Mm-hmm. It can also be very social. It can be a solitary pursuit, the singing in the shower or just singing for our own sake, or it can be that social in a choir or in a group, or, however you choose to do it. And yes, anybody can sing. And also, the younger we start our children singing, the less self-conscious they're going to be around it. That's one that I know I was so self-conscious about it. And, somebody probably said I didn't have a very good voice, or I didn't think I did. And, so we hold ourselves back, but anyone can sing. And so if we start doing that, it also can really, I'm going to bring it back to this idea of discipline too. And you talked about making up little songs, or that there's songs for healing, there's songs for this. I would make up songs with my children. And of course, with my very young children, they appreciated the sound of my voice, I guess. And so I wasn't self-conscious about it. And so we would sing while we were hiking. We would sing in the kitchen. We'd sing in the bath. We would just make up silly little songs, and they would laugh and giggle. And also intense moments, sometimes to break the tension, one of us would break into song. And of course, that diffused everything. And so, or it could change something from serious to silly, or it could make something more sacred or more special. We can infuse whatever situation we're dealing with the type of emotion that we want to. So if we want to lighten it, we can lighten it with a light song. Or if we want to deepen it, we can make it more serious. And so it's really fun to play around with that. And the kids always enjoy song. We can also use it for discipline, for rhythm. If there's a song that we sing every night at the dinner table, or if there's a song that we sing for cleaning up. My niece, she does a lot of childcare, and she's always had a cleanup song. And I'm not exactly sure where it came from, but it's a cute little jingle. And when she sings it, the kids just start cleaning up. I know that in a lot of Waldorf classrooms, there's different songs for different activities. And so the children get that rhythm into their body. When they hear that song, they know this is the time to tidy up, or this is the time to come to the table, or this is the time to get ready for bed. And so we can use those songs in so many different ways. And so I really appreciate that in terms of helping our children without being the strict disciplinarians. We can bring music in so many ways.
We can sing together. Mm-hmm. And it's funny that we were talking about this topic, because seriously, just this morning or yesterday, I was thinking of the event that you planned when you were a teacher in the classroom, and it was family music night, mm-hmm. where each family had to come up with a song and do it, and we had, of course, the Martins were amazing, and they did like a song just for homeschool. Do you remember that? Emily and Rick, they did a song.
They'd written it. Yeah.
Yeah. When they were playing guitar, the ukulele. And I remember we did If I Had a Hammer, and the kids, if I had a bell and all that stuff. So that was super fun. Definitely.
Right. And just being appreciative of just getting out there and doing it, and whether we're fabulous singers or not, or whether we're musicians. And I remember one of the years we did that, my daughter and I got up and sang, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. And, we didn't have fabulous voices, but it's so much fun to just get into it and have this, loving and caring audience. It's going to be supportive no matter what. Another family played, I can't remember the name of the song, but it was something from the Depression, and they played it like on the washboard and the tub, and so you just have fun with it. And to model for our children that singing can be joyful, that it's not a scary thing, that it's something that we all have within us. And so I always feel, when I hear families say, oh, well, we don't do that, or we don't do this, it's like, well, why not? Or I'm not good at this, or I'm not good at that. We can develop any of these things. And so whether it's singing or dancing or playing a musical instrument, we can
And
do
that's
it.
and that's what we're role modeling. When my son was interested in the violin, so was I. So we took lessons together, and so that was because we're constantly modeling lifelong learning, right? And so we have to do it too. And it's funny, it's because I think, because we're not good at it, we don't think we can do it. Even doing, if I had a hammer, I remember being so scared because I don't think I can sing that well. But you just do it, and so I think we just have to do it. One thing that was really great for my kids, if you're in a community that like Music Together, which is I think it's either nationwide or even worldwide, but there are singing groups, and there are, we had another one. What was Joya Winwood's? What was her group called? Do you remember?
Oh, Mother Song.
Exactly. So, and there's Womb Song as well. We're in Santa Cruz. And so these are a few offerings that we have locally, but I'm sure in your community, you have people who are wanting to bring music to the community. And those, you're going to have to tap into those resources, because it does take a little bit of research, but the exposure is just, whether it's going to a free family concerts, we have every week in the summer, we have free concert series. You start by that exposure. Those are free, right? And then if your child likes to dance, likes to grab the music, instrument, little shakers or whatever, then, you invest in a little bit, invest in a class here and there.
Right. So starting with, just the simple musical gatherings to all the way to, we mentioned earlier, the Celtic music camp, this is where the whole family can go away to camp for a week or two together. And so, there's so many different ways of doing it. When our children were young, I sang to them when they were very young, all kinds of little songs and nursery rhymes and lullabies. And then we had friends that were musicians, and my husband and I are not strong musicians. I took piano when I was younger, and then I played guitar when the kids were little. I took some guitar lessons, and, again, playing for them and modeling for them. But we had a fire pit in our backyard. And so what we would do is we would create the fire and we would invite the musicians. And so we were surrounded by a lot of really talented people in the community. And so they would all come, and we would have these amazing evenings where we would sing under the stars and just have such a great time. And so the kids were exposed to a lot of fabulous music that way, mostly kind of folk music and acoustic music. When our children were growing up, I was exposed to a lot of classical music when I was growing up. My mother would always have the radio on to the classical music station. So, you said you grew up with the church music, and I grew up with just the classical music always. And what's so fun now is, as an adult, I would hear these songs, and, it's part of my core being. I would hear it and it would evoke a memory. And, I could just picture myself in the kitchen, and my mom was doing some cooking, and that song was playing, or every Saturday morning they played this, so those types of things bring back those memories. But, just in terms of exposing our children to those things, yes, the free concerts, every community, usually has free concerts that we can take our children to. And then as they get older, we can start taking them to symphonies and operas and different orchestral offerings. And so, just really taking advantage of what's out there in the community, but creating your own too.
Yeah. And I think it's important, like music is a part of our culture. When you said this about your mother bringing in the classical music, and it's just like, I had church music every Sunday, but in between that, my parents were very appreciative of music. And so my dad, coming from an Irish background, the Irish music was very strong in our house. And then my mom, being coming from a Mexican background, Mexican music was also very big. So when I hear Irish music and Mexican music, definitely is just a reminder of my culture. And I play it for my children to say, this is your culture. This is a part of who you are, because that is rooted in the story, and just, it's their history. And I think that's important to show that to our kids, that this is music of your people.
Mm-hmm. And to appreciate that. I mean, when we look at the history of music, I mean, there's discoveries of Stone Age instruments. There were bone instruments. There were reed instruments. I mean, people have been making music together for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And so we want to share all of this progression of humanity with our children and help them understand that history of music. And then, of course, the different cultures are so pivotal. And then we can expose our children to other people, other cultures' music as well, and help them appreciate this global collective of amazing music.
World music. And and then it's like, we're homeschool teachers, so it's just the jump off into curriculum with geography, with world cultures, and it, I remember when we did a Japan unit where we did everything. We dressed, and we the food and the study, but then also the music. I remember downloading a Japanese CD, and it was the shamisen, a particular instrument just from Japan that you'd never heard of. And so just bringing in those things, it's all curriculum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's so interesting. And, there's going to be music that we resonate with. And that's always fascinating to me. Is like, why do I resonate with this music, but not that music? Or why is that a little discordant, but this is so melodic? Whereas other people see it differently. And so, we all have our own taste. We all have what we gravitate to. And I'm sure, our children do as well. And so it's important to expose them to a lot of different types as they get older. I think, again, when they're very young, keeping it simple, our voice is such an important one to really start with infants and babies and even toddlers. But then we can start introducing more. And for those people who say, well, I can't sing, well, I would invite them to try and just have fun with it, because our children are our greatest audience, and they don't care. I mean, I think my children were well into the elementary school years before anybody made a critical comment about my voice.
Well, I was thinking, I like to sing in the car, and now even my youngest is like, Mom, when we're stopped, you cannot sing in the car, because I like to dance too. But it's just, I don't want to embarrass her.
Well, I remember the point where I was singing and my husband turned the radio on, and I'm like, is that a message? Yeah. But, and then also the car rides, the show tunes, the musicals. Oh my goodness. So many times we'd take these long car trips and we were singing just, all the songs from musicals. And so the kids grew up with a lot of that. And
now we're doing Hamilton now, because we just all saw Hamilton, and it's pretty. Some of it's is a little bit, but it's so good.
Well, you've got older children, so
exactly. They're fine.
So we talk about age appropriate, and so you can use your judgment on that one in terms of what seems right. But it's just really interesting to look at how we can bring this in ways that inspire our children, that engage our children, and that we're having fun with it. Because you mentioned earlier on, the Tiger Mom. And I do think that there are times when we need to nudge our children, that we need to encourage them. One of mine actually said he wished that we had made him practice more and had him stay with an instrument, chosen one instrument and had him stay with it longer, which made me laugh because, even if we'd tried, I don't think that would have made a difference. But I do appreciate the fact that my parents had me take piano lessons, and that I did have to stick with it, and I did have to practice. And there was this discipline. We talk about practice. Yes, of course, we need to work on things to get better at it. If we don't sing, we're not going to get better at it. If we don't practice our piano or our guitar, we're not going to get better at it.
But you're not good at anything unless you practice. Really.
Right. And that we can take things on at different stages in our lives. But that said, as parents, yes, we can encourage it. We can require it. We can nudge. But when we push too hard, I think that there are times when children will rebel against that. And that's going to be different with every single child and every single family. So I think, within ours, when it would get to the point where it was like, they didn't want to do that any longer, we would nudge a little further and then switch and let them choose a different instrument. And so that kept going for enough years that they had exposure to different types of instruments so that they would feel comfortable with them. But
Yeah.
there's no knowing for sure. There's that child who the parent insists and they go on to be
Play at Carnegie Hall.
right. And then there are the ones that say, forget it, I'm not doing it anymore. And so we just invite you to really explore the options, because there's so many out there, and that it's just good for the whole child. It's good for the family. It's good for just everything. And so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, go pick up an instrument and go sing a song. And, I think just expose and experience. Really provide opportunities.
Yeah, and I appreciate you've shared so much with me in terms of different types of music over the year. And I know, hopefully I've done the same. And so I think that when we talk to each other about, what is your favorite? And do you have something that you did with your children? Or what do you, again, moms sharing with moms what's working, what's enjoyable, and whether you do it in a small group or a large group, whether you do it within your family or out in the community, there's lots of different ways to bring music into our lives. So we hope you enjoy a musical week, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time on The Moms I Know.
Thanks for joining us today for The Moms I Know. To learn more about Sheila and her online program, The Mom Map, visit purplebeetnutrition.com. For Maria's monthly blog and to learn more about her group programs and retreats, visit SoquelEssentials.com. That's SOQUEL Essentials.com. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Moms I Know. Until next week, have a joyful family journey.